All right. I see everyone starting in on the chat and saying good morning. Good morning to everybody. We are very excited to have you join us today.
Hear me? Hey, are you able to join our
All right. So, good morning, everyone, and welcome. My name is Corey Howeiler. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Dallas Habitat for Humanity. We know homeownership is an exciting but daunting challenge, especially for a first-time homeowner. Dallas Habitat is a housing nonprofit best known for its home construction in Dallas and Kaufman counties, but our work spans far beyond that. We want you to feel empowered and educated as you start your home ownership journey, and we are here to educate and counsel you every step of the way. Today, we are connecting you with experts in the home buying industry. We will talk to you about current housing market trends and how to navigate the home buying process with expert realtors and lenders. Thank you for prioritizing your future and being here today. Please explore, learn, and ask questions in the chat or in the Q&A box. Our panelists will answer questions towards the end of the program. We would also like to thank our presenting sponsor, Bank of America, and are excited to speak with a Bank of America representative a little bit later today. As an added bonus today, we have a very special MC to help guide us through our program. It's my honor to get to introduce my dear friend, Mercedes Ramirez Johnson. Mercedes has traveled the world speaking to clients such as the U.S. military, Microsoft, NASA, Chevron, and Exxon, and now Dallas Area Habitat for Humanity. She has been featured extensively in national and international media, including Good Morning America, the National Geographic Channel, the BBC, and People magazine. Mercedes' stories begin on her 21st birthday. It was December 20th, 1995, when she and her parents boarded a plane in Miami bound for Colombia, South America. She was going to spend the holidays with her family. Shortly, you will hear how those events changed her life forever. But first, we'll start with a brief introductory video.
She survived a plane crash, and now Mercedes Ramirez is home. Good evening. She is one of only 4 survivors of the deadly plane crash in Cali, Colombia. And now Mercedes Ramirez has returned home for more medical attention. Carlton Houston joins us live from Truman Medical Center with the latest on her condition. Carlton?
Michelle and Crystal, we're awaiting word on surgery. Mercedes Ramirez is undergoing surgery at this time. Now, this tragic story of a South American plane crash turned local almost 2 weeks ago when we learned that 21-year-old Mercedes Ramirez was on that plane. 160 people died in the crash, including Mercedes' parents, Benjamin and Mercedes. But the 21-year-old college student survived. She traveled last night.
She was not expected to live. Cali, Colombian medical officials gave her a 30% chance to live. Her body has undergone numerous surgeries, not to mention the plane crash itself and the loss of her 2 parents.
Ramirez, the Kansas City survivor of the plane crash in South America, was finally released from the hospital today. Ramirez was one of only 4 survivors of the American airline crash in December. She's been in intensive care for 6 weeks with massive internal and spinal injuries. Before leaving, she read a thank you to Kansas City.
As I leave the hospital, I feel very blessed to be alive and returning to a normal life. My prayers go out to all who lost loved ones in the crash. I know and feel your love. I appreciate all of you for coming today and allowing me to tell you how thankful I am. Thanks.
Thank you all for having me here today. No matter how many times I watch that video, I still watch it like it's a movie that happened to another family, right? Like plane crashes don't just happen to people you know. Plane crashes are something that you see, that you read about in books or see in newspapers, but for it to actually happen to yourself and to your actual loved ones, that was a very humbling and life affirming situation. But just like all of us sharing this time together this morning, we have all had life affirming, life altering, drastic detours that our lives have taken. But thankfully, being that we're all on this call today, we've all survived our worst day ever, but yet we're still here battling those past traumas, but also hopefully using those past experiences and those past worst days ever to actually move us forward to accomplishing our dreams. For me, it happened on my 21st birthday. My parents and I were on our way to Colombia, South America, to celebrate the Christmas holidays and New Year's, and the pilots accidentally entered in the wrong code into the flight computer, making the plane fly 130 miles into the wrong direction when we were only 15 minutes from landing at our final uh, home sweet home and happy holiday at the airport. And when that detour happened, the pilots weren't able to actually correct the problem until it was too late. And that's why, unfortunately, out of 164 that were on board, only four survived. I was fortunate enough to have been one of those four survivors, but surviving that, being given originally only a 20% chance of survival from that point forward, it was very sobering for me to realize that, okay, I can't just go through the motions anymore. The life that I had planned out for me to enjoy with my parents who had immigrated from Central and South America to come to this country to create a better life and to achieve dreams that they may have not have been possible if they would have stayed home in their home countries. That put on a beautiful responsibility on my shoulders to think they're not going to be able, they did live out some amazing dreams while they were here in this country for 30 years, but how am I going to move that legacy and those dreams forward? And so that has become a very important part of how I operate in life, is that realizing that every day I have to wake up with intention. Every day I have to wake up with a drive, especially on those days where I may not feel like it or I may not want it, or because there's so many things going on in life and in the world and in this country, and don't even start talking about the news or anything, but just sometimes it's just hard to just stay focused on what is it that I want to accomplish today and what is it that is going to drive me to move forward and fight through all the distractions so I can accomplish my dreams. And so with all of us that are here today, you wouldn't be on this call today sharing these 2 hours together and learning from one another if you didn't have a growth mindset, if you weren't already working towards what am I going to do to accomplish the dreams that I want to accomplish. And what I learned from this surviving this plane crash is that where you are today may not be where you want to be, but every little decision that you make, there's really no such thing as little decisions or small choices, because every choice that you do make and every interaction that you have can then create a tremendous impact on that future that you want to have, right? And um, so I know I'm preaching to the choir because we're all here to learn. We're all here living our lives with intention, or at least on this Saturday morning, we woke up with drive and we woke up with an open heart and open mind. But aside from that, where do I want to end up? Where do I want to see myself 5 years from now? Where do I want to see myself and my family and my loved ones 10 years from now? And what are the steps that I can start taking today to make that happen? For me, unfortunately, it took surviving a plane crash to learn that, and it took learning how to walk again and just figuring out what my new normal was going to be after so many months in the hospital and after grieving the loss of my two dear parents. But for all of you, um, I want you to walk away feeling empowered, knowing that there will, just how life works, there will be detours in life that happen, and we may not be able to control all those detours that take us completely off course from achieving our dreams, but we have 100% control and 100% we are the pilots of our lives, right? Like if our life was a cockpit and where our life is going is all the instrumentation used to fly through that journey, you all are always going to have control on being able to navigate through the turbulence, navigate through the setbacks and be able to stay on course for where you know you deserve, you need to be, and where the people who love and depend on you deserve where they need to be as well. And so it's a beautiful responsibility to accept in our lives, but we want to look back 5 years from now, 10, 20 years from now, and be proud that we made the sacrifices early on um, to create that dream. And everybody on this call, everybody's dream may look different, may feel different, but as long as it is in sync with who you authentically are, as long as it resonates with your full authenticity, your happy ending, your happiness, your home sweet home is completely up to you. So we are very excited to be sharing this time this morning, getting ourselves fired up about home ownership. And as daunting as the whole concept of home ownership may initially look and feel, Habitat has this, aside from this program, has lots of resources to help you along every step of the way. I remember when I went through my first home ownership experience after I was recently married, it was scary, but thankfully, my in-laws at the time were very helpful to guide us. We knew people in banking who were able to walk us through and hold our hand, but I know that we were an exception because we lived in a small town north of Kansas City where people knew who we were and helped us along every step of the way. But here's Habitat to give you that concierge service to help you through the process so that it's a little bit less daunting, it's a little bit less overwhelming, and it doesn't seem like just a dream to own a home. It's gonna be your reality. And so I'm excited to be spending this time with you this morning. And we look forward to learning from one another. And please, everyone, be open. We're going to have Q&A later, so you can ask questions of our esteemed panelists who are experts in everything home ownership related. And so please make it worth your time by being involved in the conversation. And at the end, we're also going to release the contact information for everybody if you have additional questions. So if we're not able to answer your questions right now today, this conversation will continue for all of us. And so I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to Corey if you have any additional comments that you would like to make before we go into introducing the panel.
No, thank you very, very much, Mercedes. That's awesome. You hit on so many key points. And like I said, I'm so inspired by your story. And um, I know that you mentioned kind of everyone has their own story that they go through, and having people here on this call that can help with that next big life-changing moment in people's lives can be very beneficial to everyone. So let's go ahead and introduce these people that can take us to the next step.
Yes, fantastic. Now we're gonna introduce the brain power on this call. We Habitat has lined up a wonderful panel of experts, both in real estate, banking, mortgage lending, and just the housing market in general. So you guys are going to learn a lot today. So the first person I would like to introduce is Akemi Watkins. Akemi is a licensed realtor with Keller Williams Realty. So Akemi, thank you so much for being on this call. We're going to learn a little bit more about you once we're into the actual panel section, but thank you for being here. Our next expert that we have is Devon Wilson. Devon is an account executive insurance agent with Goosehead Insurance. And so we're going to learn a lot from Devon. So Devon, thank you for being here. Our next expert is Kip Dixon. Kip is the Associate Vice President of Community Development at Cadence Bank. As you can see, Kip is very dedicated to what he does. He's got his name tag on and everything, so he is ready to roll this morning. So Kip, thank you so much for being here today. Our next expert is Pilar Johnson. No relation, but we look like we could be related. So Pilar is the Vice President of Community Development in the loan officer division with First Horizon. So, Pilar, thank you for being here today. And our last amazing expert that we have on our panel is Allison Lang. Allison is the Community Lending Officer with Bank of America, and she is also instrumental at being the sponsor to allow this morning to happen for everybody here. So, Allison, thank you for being here. We appreciate you. So we're going to go ahead and start off with the first and overall view level of what the current market trends are. And Akemi is going to be our expert who's going to help answer some of our questions about the housing industry and the real estate industry. So Akemi, if you don't mind telling us a little bit about yourself. If you can unmute yourself.
Okay, there we go. I had to find the button. Guys, this stuff is not as simple as it always looks, right? Good morning, everybody. I'm so glad that you took time out of your Saturday to hop on this call in order to educate yourself about your journey in homeownership and where you're wanting to go and how to get there. A little bit about myself. I am a real estate agent here in the DFW area where I specialize in helping first-time home buyers, military families that are using VA benefits, clients that are either ready to upgrade or investors who are looking to invest in future properties. I've been here in the Dallas area for over 20, well, my goodness, 25 years. My son is 25, so ugh, that's a long time. It doesn't feel like a long time because I still can't find everywhere here in Dallas, right? But I have a passion and I have a love for being able to help families obtain home ownership, which they say is the American dream, right? Through being able to teach and provide services to help them navigate that journey. I guess that's a little bit about me, and I'm a proud grandmother of one. Uh, I guess, and I'm from Florida. I don't know what else to say.
Well, as they say, I'm not from Texas, but I came here as quickly as I could, right? So
Absolutely.
welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
So we hear about the market a lot, right? So let's
Mhm.
talk about that. In today's market, is it a good time to buy a home? And if so, what are some steps that first-time homeowners need to take in order to make that a reality?
So when it comes to that, and I guess I'm not a traditional person. I always feel like whatever it is that you want to do, you can get it, you can do it. So whatever time that is that you want to do something, it's always the right time. Something changes later and to do something different, right? But in the market right now, it's always a good time when you're ready. You just have to know how to navigate it. A lot of people are talking about the interest rates right now. And again, I know that she did ask me to speak on how the market is and the rates. On some things, I'll stay in my lane. When it comes to specific numbers, I let the, mortgage people handle that because they're more direct and they know more about that than me. And I would not want to lead you wrong because it consistently changes, you know. But in the market right now, as everybody here, and we're still at a standing of 6 to 7% on the interest rates. So my perspective on that is a lot of people are like, oh, I'm going to wait till the interest rates are going to drop or do whatever it is going to do. But always pose the question, is your concern really the interest rate or is your concern being able to afford the monthly payments? Because if you can afford the monthly payments, really nobody cares about the interest rates, more or less. You know what I mean? Because we want to make it affordable for you to be able to obtain home ownership. So, if you have a good team behind you, which is your title company, your mortgage person, and everybody in between to help you get to that goal of home ownership to where you're able to afford it on a monthly basis, do you really care if it's at 6%, 12%, 50%? Well, maybe 50%, but but do you really care? Because we want to definitely be able to make it affordable. So is it a good time to buy? Again, I think it's always a good time to buy. It's just educating you on how to navigate, how to get there, because there's more than one way to get to a destination. And
Right.
having a good team will allow you to do that. Now, when it comes to inventory, the inventory is still what we have. I think at this time, and it consistently changes, which is crazy. We have a lot of people wanting to sell houses and not enough buyers per se. So what they say, it's a seller's market, buyer's market. to me, it always depends. I'm not a direct person to say one way or the other, but
And
it's a
when
lot of
people
people.
say that seller's market, buyer's market, what exactly does that mean?
Okay. So that means there's more houses that are for sale than there are buyers wanting to buy. you know and from my experience, and I always say from my experience, because it doesn't make it right or wrong, it depends on your perspective. As of right now, a lot of people are a little timid on buying houses because of just what's going on in the world. So they're just like, well, I'll wait, I'll see, I'm going to do this. But I always say there's no better time than the present, because if anything changes, then you pivot. If it doesn't work, then you do something else. But you don't want to miss the opportunity off of fear either. So that's what it is. So but houses are where it's basically they're selling at, when I say face value, so whatever the list price is, they're getting that. So it wasn't what like it was maybe 2-3 years ago, where you have a house and people are overpaying 50-60,000 dollars for it. It's not like that. It's not, we're not in that space right now. But we are in a space to where there's sellers who want to sell, and they're ready to negotiate that because they're wanting to get out of either a situation or get out of that situation. And then there's buyers who want to buy, but just again, they're just a little timid because they're not knowing what's going on. But that's why we're here to kind of educate you and guide you to let there's a different options and different ways to get to your destination.
Right.
Right now, sellers are offering a lot of incentives as well, and price adjustments, because sellers want to sell and they want buyers to buy it. So there's a lot of concessions. I have a property available to me now to where it's and it's amazing that it was like, we're going to pay all closing costs. We just want to sell the house. So essentially we can have a buyer for this property that can come to the table with no money because they're going to pay all their closing costs. So that's where kind of buyers are. And that's just a good example. Doesn't happen often, all the time. It's case by case. But we do have, like I say, sellers who are ready to get out of that situation. Um, Also, the question was posed as far as new construction. How is that working out? The new construction era, which is a beautiful thing, again, it's just different options. Builders are offering some of the best deals right now also, in order to get homeowners into their properties. They're having concessions, and they're having different incentives, whatever works for you. So buyers definitely have a lot of opportunities and a lot of different options. You just want to be able to have someone to help you navigate what's best for you.
And just like you were saying, there's really no perfect time to buy a house. You could be growing a family. You could have gotten a new job to where now you want a little bit more space, or you're maybe cohabitating with other family members and things. And so, uh, as Akemi was saying, is it a perfect time to buy a house? Only you can answer that. Is your personal needs of having your own space, having your own home sweet home, is it time for you? Well, only you can answer that. Now, to go back to some of the nuts and bolts, because you were throwing out some terminology that I sometimes don't even know what those things mean. Uh, when we're talking about interest rates, because we hear about it all the time, you did a great job of saying that maybe it's not necessarily the interest rates that we should be quote unquote scared of. It's really about what the monthly payment is going to be. So, could you tell us a little bit more about how interest rates would affect what that final monthly payment of that mortgage would be? Because sometimes people may not know the correlation of interest rates and mortgage and how that all comes together.
Yes. So interest rates is basically is going to reflect on a case by case, person by person. It's going to have to, so interest rates is going to have to do with, and I used to teach, so I kind of speak in a different, direct. It's going to say, well, how well did you do in your past in order for us to trust you with the present of our money, or our asset. Let's use asset. And so the interest rate basically just, that's kind of where it guides you, and kind of, again, that's not really my realm to explain, but I just, in the terms that I know, the interest rates puts us, basically stating that this is what you're approved for, but we're going to tack this interest on. Like when you go to buy a car, based on how much money you're going to put down, based on if you can do, like we have buy downs too, where you can buy down the interest rate as well. And that's another, throwing that in there, another incentive a lot of sellers are using, like, hey, we'll help you buy down your rate. The interest rate does predict or play a role in what your monthly payments are. So it's an interest. So if you borrow $2 from somebody and they say, okay, when you pay me back my money, I want my $2 plus another dollar. That's a 50% interest rate, right? So basically that's what it's saying. But there's ways to also navigate around the interest rates, or how do you pay off your loan earlier, or where do you put your money at um, in your mortgage in order to not pay interest on, because you're only paying interest on the money that's sitting there. You know what I mean? So when you pay off something, you're paying interest on the next part. You pay that off, you're paying interest on the next part. But if you could pay most of it off, you're not paying interest on what you pay. Does that make sense? And
Yeah.
it's kind of hard to explain because it's not my circle, but interest rate does. Now, again, you can pay down your interest rates because it does play a role in how much you're paying monthly. So if you pay it down, then your monthly payments are less as well.
So let's say you had a client, first-time homeowners that are looking to buy a home. What do you do when they say, "Well, I know how much money we're bringing in a month, but I don't know how much I can afford for a mortgage." Like, what is some advice that you give them? Because most of us know, knock on wood, how much income we're bringing in, but then what's the reality of how much of that income realistically should be allocated toward paying your home every month?
Right. I understand what you're saying. So with that, you would have, so that would be basically a mortgage person would tell you exactly that. And they could tell you too, Don, because it has to do with debt to income ratio. It has to do with what's on your credit. It has to do with what debts you have to pay off. And a lot of people, and I'll throw this in there too, a lot of people say, oh, I'm not ready to buy a house because of my credit, or I owe a lot of money on this and that. A lot of times that may be where you see it, but that doesn't affect you from getting a home, because if you sometimes you don't even have to pay down all of your debt. Some of your debt may not even, I don't want to say may not matter, but we're friends here, right? Some of it may not matter when it comes to that. Only a person, the mortgage person, can be able to sit down and say, okay, we need to not pay this off, we need to pay this down to this, pay this down to this, go ahead and pay that off so we could just be done with that. And sometimes some of your debts can be paid at closing, and then you're done and you're over with that. But it does affect you. You do want to be cautious of your credit, and you do want to protect your credit. And I think so many of us, well, from where I'm from, we wasn't taught that credit was an important thing. I didn't know what credit was. But I didn't even get credit cards either. And having credit cards is it can be a good thing also. Just knowing how to work with those is this key point.
That reminds me, when I was in school, there would be credit card companies that would set up in the student union. And, back in 1994, I would sign up for all the credit cards because
Yeah,
oh
you had to
yeah,
get.
I'm going to be fancy. And once my parents found out that I had like 5 or 6 credit cards to little boutique shops, and that they were
Yep.
like, no, we need to
No.
explain to you about credit. And I was just thankful, for their mentality was, don't be in debt. Don't put things on credit
Right.
cards that you can't pay off
Right.
at the end of the month. That was how
Yes.
they manage things. And that's kind of how I've taken that into the future. But we all have grown up in different environments where sometimes even our own families don't really know much about credit and how that affects things like being able to even get an apartment, let alone an actual home or a
Absolutely.
car and things like that. So if someone is like, okay, I'm ready, I want to buy a house, how do I start this process? What are maybe 3 to 5 steps that you would say for someone who's just deer in headlights? They have no idea about anything. All they know is that they are ready to buy a home. What are some first initial steps that maybe someone can take to just kind of prepare for the process? Not actually get everything started, but what are some things that maybe mentally or financially they need to start doing to get the process emotionally started for themselves?
Okay. What I would first say is, one question I always ask first is this going to be your forever home? Because that makes a mental difference, a big mental difference. Is this going to be your forever home? And when I get people who are like 25 or something, oh yeah, I'm like, okay, okay. um, because your mindset is going to be a little different. But is this going to be a forever home? And then you also want to ask yourself, because I look at things on a business level on everything, how if I decide to do something different, how can I take my real estate and allow my real estate to work for me? You know, and I think as young people, I teach a lot of young people also coming out of high school that I tell them, like, it may not be a forever home, but whatever you can get, if it can be an asset to you later, you know, that's kind of where you want to think, because at 20 something, it may be, most likely it's not, you know. So but I would ask yourself, and then ask yourself, are you ready? And when I say are you ready, that means that you have to start setting up certain things, such as putting a little bit of money away, because you don't want to get here and say, oh, you know, it's going to, because it takes a little grit to get in, to get in a home. You might need 4,000, you might need 5,000, and you don't want that to be the determining factor of you being able to get in a home when it could have took you a year to save $100 here and there. So have a little bit of savings kept away for that. Then also ask yourself, the job that you're on. One thing is you want to be on a specific job for two years at least. Again, that's not my realm. I always will state that's not my realm. A mortgage person will give you all those guidelines, but we want to see stability, because we want you want to pay your mortgage, right? Um, and then also be aware of the money you're spending. If you do have credit cards, pay them on time. Because a lot of times it may not be how much is on your credit card. Can we trust you to pay on time? Can we trust you to do what you say you're going to do? Because you do want to build good credit. A home does help build that as well, but you want to build, good credit. So one thing I would say is, if you are leasing, or, in an apartment, and you're asking yourself, well, should I buy a house or not? I always pose this question too, because I like to make people think, well, right now, when you're renting or you're leasing, you're paying 100% interest. And a lot of people are worried about paying 6 to 7% interest. Well, I'd rather pay 6 or 7 interest on something that's essentially going to be mine versus 100% interest to allow somebody else to sit on the beach because they gave me your money.
It's actually going towards something. And even though it may be the
Exactly.
same amount of money coming out per month, it's
Right.
almost like you're investing in your own future. You're investing in yourself.
Absolutely.
It's kind of like working for a boss versus doing that for yourself. If you're working for yourself, then every blood, sweat, and tear and hour that is spent
Matters.
comes back to you, versus working for someone else. As they say, you're helping someone else's dream come true. So, um,
Absolutely.
thank you, Akemi. We're going to continue the panel. So whenever something pops up and a question or a topic that you want to jump into, please continue sharing your expertise with
And
us.
also, might add one more thing to
Yeah.
this. I know we were talking about homes. One thing a lot of people are thinking about now, because we do have buyers that are taking more time to really think about and have better questions to ask about obtaining, their home. We do have a lot of people who are, we're getting better at families living together. So, like, I teach a lot about buying multifamily units, such as a duplex, because that can also be where you want to live, but also be able to fund where you want to live, having somebody else pay you to live in your place. So that's another thought, because as far as a duplex, that also goes in the realm of residential. That's not going to be a commercial. So that's just a thought too, that we have a lot of families wondering about that, especially when they have children that are getting into adulthood, going into college. Maybe we should buy a duplex. That's one mortgage, the same that you would pay for a house, but it's two sides, and one can fund the other. So just a word of thought, something to think about as well.
It's helping your money work for you instead of you having to constantly work for your own money, right?
Absolutely.
We're gonna move on to Devon Mitchell. Devon, if you don't mind telling us a little bit about yourself, we're going to talk about the real estate timeline and navigating that process on top of what Akemi already shared with us. Devon.
Yes, ma'am. So my name is Devon Mitchell, and I have been in the insurance world for 6 years. I'm also a realtor. Also, I have lived in Texas my entire life. The heat doesn't get better as long as you live here. My thing is that you have to have a goal and you need to write it down. If you can't see it, it won't happen. You need to be able to mark off everything that is in your plan to get everything together.
And I think that would be a great motivator is to see your goal, even if you set like an inspiration board of home ideas or things that you want your future home to look like. It's kind of like putting a picture of a very fit athlete on your refrigerator that kind of motivates you to maybe I don't need to get in here and eat another pint of ice cream. But if you see your goals right in front of you, that kind of helps lead you forward into keeping yourself on track, because sometimes we need to hold ourselves accountable. It doesn't happen just out of nowhere. So Devon, let's say I've been living in an apartment for all of my adult life, and my lease is coming up soon. Uh, if my lease is coming up soon within the next 6 months, when should I start really thinking about seriously looking into the home buying process? If I'm about 6 months away.
I would look right now.
Okay.
Yep. I would start the process immediately. You want to make sure that you have all your ducks in a row in order to purchase the property so you don't have to be rushing to get to the finish line.
Okay. And so let's say you're like 6 months from now, I want to be in a home. I'm starting the process now. Um, I would assume that the first step I would take would be to research finding a realtor, because I think a realtor would be able to connect me with all the different experts that I need, the title
Okay.
company, the mortgage company, everything. And so if I'm looking for a realtor, sure, I can just Google and find the first person that comes up. But I think since we all know a home is one of the most, if not the most important investment that you can make into yourself and into your family's future, what are some qualities that I should look for in a realtor, and what are some questions that I should ask them? Because I think we owe it to ourselves to, when choosing a realtor, we're interviewing them for the job of finding us a home. So, what are some questions that we should ask a potential realtor, and possibly some red flags that would make us think, maybe this person isn't the person I should go with?
Yeah, you want to interview multiple realtors to make sure that a realtor, first off, is not working Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, because most buyers are going to be looking at properties after work on the weekends. You want that same dynamic too for your loan officer. You just need to make sure that you build a dynamic team that if one isn't available, you're able to lean on your loan officer, you're able to lean on your realtor, you're able to lean on your insurance agent to make sure that all those questions can be answered. You want to ask about how long they've been in the business. Now, don't sleep on someone that's been new or that's new. That's a brand new realtor, because someone has to start somewhere. But you want to make sure that they do have a broker that's going to assist them with questions that they can't answer. Not all seasoned realtors are great. Brand new agents can help you as well. So I always say just give that person a chance until they prove otherwise. Make sure that you give them the opportunity as well. Because you are a first-time home buyer also, I would just definitely just make sure that you give everyone a chance. You also want to make sure that the agent knows the area that you're in and can research for you. You want them to be able to look at red flags when a property is listed, whenever you're looking at homes. They need to be able to explain the full buying process from start to finish. And then also be able to explain what happens during an inspection. They just need to be well-rounded in each area. They may not know everything about lending. They may not know everything about inspections, but they're able to get you to the right person to make sure that your questions are answered.
And you had mentioned something that if a realtor is relatively new, that you should make sure that they have a broker to help them through the process of
Correct.
helping you through the process. What exactly is what's the difference between a broker, a real estate agent, a realtor? Like I see all these terms being thrown around. Can you kind of break that down for us?
Yes, ma'am. So a realtor is up under a broker. A broker can work without being assisted by anyone else. They can work on their own. A realtor has to have their umbrella up under a broker, so they'll have guidance. Whenever you're a broker, I don't remember how many hours you have to have. You have to have a certain amount of hours in sales in order to become a broker. You don't just step out and be a broker. You have to have some skin in the game as a realtor, and then you can upgrade to a broker. The realtor is always going to pay into the brokerage. They don't own the brokerage.
So if we were equating it to healthcare, the broker is the doctor, the realtor is like the nurse practitioner or the PA, where they're still able to do the business and bring in the clients and find homes for people, but they have to answer, the nurse practitioner has to answer to the doctor, even though the nurse practitioner can write prescriptions, can admit you to the hospital, can do almost everything that a doctor can do, but the broker is like the doctor who helps oversee the process and has the liability of basically owning the business. Is that how you would describe
Yeah,
it?
yep, that's a
Okay.
perfect description for sure.
Okay. And is there any advantage of like, well, if that's the case, then I only want to go with someone who's a broker, or is it safe and fine to go with someone who's a realtor versus a broker? I mean, is there any difference in the buying process and in the search process for a person?
No, not necessarily. A broker has just been in the game probably longer than a realtor. Not all realtors want to be a broker. They don't want to have the responsibility of having a team and being responsible for a slew of realtors. You can be a realtor forever and never become a broker and still have just as much experience as a broker. The good thing about being a broker, you don't split your commission. It's all of your money versus being just a realtor. You are paying, your broker does get a piece of the pie.
Mhm. Fantastic. And I think there might be specific things for someone who is a first time buyer. Um, I would assume that you want to be with someone who is patient, who allows you the freedom to ask as many million questions as you need to, because there's no such thing as a dumb question, right? If you don't know what it is, then it's not a dumb question because it's a real question. Um, what are some other pitfalls or red flags that people should be looking at when they are going through that screening process of finding themselves a trustworthy realtor? Like, would you suggest that they go to different social media forums to find a realtor? Should they go to family members? I mean, we all love our family, but sometimes I wouldn't trust my family with. I love them to pieces, but I don't know if they know what's best, So where are some platforms or areas that we as potential first time homeowners can go to find credible realtors?
I mean, I wouldn't discount your family because if they've used a realtor, they can give you the full scope of their process with that particular realtor. You definitely can do an online search. Facebook is good, TikTok is good. Um, Me personally, I would want to meet that person in person just to get a feel and a vibe. What I always tell my clients is whenever you sign the real estate agreement to work with someone, we're dating, we're not married. If you don't like how I handle the transaction or when we go look at a property, then we can break up. Just keep in mind that you just want to make sure that when you're asking the realtor the right questions, that they're a good fit for you. And if they aren't, just please tell them, hey, look, I don't think we're a good fit, and explain to them why you're not using them anymore. But if you already have a lender, you can reach out to them and they can point you to the right realtor that they would that they've worked with before.
So you had mentioned that when someone wants to buy a home, then you get into an agreement with a realtor, right? So what's in that agreement? Does that mean like I have to sell my house or get a house with you? Is there a timeline like you're my real estate agent for the next 6 months? I mean, what are some things that we want to make sure when we're signing that agreement to be with a real estate agent to help us through the process? What are some things that we want to make sure are in that agreement, and what are some things that we want to make sure aren't tried to be put into that agreement?
Everything is negotiable. Before you can look at a house, we have to have a buyer's rep signed. There's a short form where you can either look just at one property to kind of get a feel of how that agent would work, or there's a long form where you're signing a couple of months, 6 months. All of that is negotiable. So what's in the agreement is you're hiring me only. I'm going to be the sole realtor that is going to help you. We're going to discuss commissions because sellers do not have to pay commission now. But most of them are paying. If they aren't paying the amount that is on the agreement, that is another negotiation that could happen. Your realtor could change it. Keep in mind that agreement can be amended as well if something comes up and you guys work out an agreement on a particular property. And then it also has the time frame that we're going to work with, that if I happen to have two clients that want to look at the same house, as the realtor, we're going to show both of you guys. It's just our duty to make sure that we're fair and honest with all of our clients.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's not, you can get out of that agreement. It's not in stone.
And so if you are trying to get out of that agreement before the specified timeline that the agreement was initially made, what are some things that could get you out of that agreement? Would job loss or personal situation, like if you see that it's not working, do you have to pay to get out of that agreement, or how does that work out if first off either you have a major life event happen to where buying a home is just not going to be feasible this year, versus, or on the other end of the spectrum, as you said, uh, getting in a relationship with an agent, it's like dating. Like, it's not you, it's me. No, it's not me, it's you. And this isn't working. I mean, you wouldn't say it that way. You'd be polite and nice about it. But what are some clauses or things that would allow you to get out of that agreement, as you said earlier, Devon?
I mean, no one can make you buy a house with them if it's not your time anymore. If you decide, hey, I can't do this, you just need to put it in writing to your realtor to get out of your agreement. Now, if something was penciled in with and we don't do this in my office, that you would have to pay a fee, then you would make sure that you read that contract correctly, the agreement correctly, to get out of your contract. With me, I always say we're dating. If you want to break it with me, it's fine, because a realtor can break up with the client as well. What I do is, if you're late, always late to showings, I'm not going to continue to help you, because you don't have enough skin in the game to be on time to make your dream a reality. I don't want to waste time either. So
Right.
I just
If
always
you
say, put everything in writing to get out of it. It's not anything that you're locked into.
Mhm, mhm. As you were saying, when you're reviewing that agreement, I think everybody has that one uncle in the family who's like, "Oh, here's a contract. Have him look over it." But let's say if we don't have that one wise uncle in our family, and we don't have a background in law, and legal agreements can sometimes be very confusing to read through and to understand in layman's terms. What would you suggest? For people who are reviewing those contracts, making sure that all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. What are some resources that you would suggest for people to be able to review that contract confidently, aside, of course, from the realtor who's putting it in front of you? But what are some other sources that people may be able to use to review those contracts so that they feel confident moving forward in agreeing to that agreement?
You can reach out to, I guess, family members as well. You can have a loan officer look at it, an attorney look at it. The agreement is not anything that's super cryptic. I would suggest that you go over it with the realtor, and they should be able to explain it to you. If you read it, it'll say section 1, this is what happens. Section 2, it's not any foreign language where you shouldn't be able to understand it. The biggest issue that people have now, no one likes to read. You have to read it. You can sit down with the realtor and go over it piece by piece. And that's what I do. I will sit down and read every line to someone if they don't understand it. It's not anything that is difficult.
Well, I think that's where that relationship really comes into play, is that if you feel that someone is talking down to you while they're reviewing that contract with you, if you feel that no matter how many, you're asking the question in three different ways and you feel like you're still not getting an answer, then maybe that is grounds to, like, we need to break up because I don't feel that you're giving me the information that, I've asked you three different ways. This one particular clause I don't understand in this agreement, and you're kind of still giving me the runaround. So, but of course, I don't want to put fear in anyone's minds about the agreement. But I just know that anytime I see an agreement, my eyes start to kind of roll over, and I think, oh no, I'm signing my life away. What does this mean? And I don't like to read all that much either. So it's all about investing that time into looking over line by line with your realtor. And Devon, I know you said something about a loan officer. Can you briefly tell us how a loan officer comes into play? Is a loan officer someone that you find completely on your own, or is that someone that your realtor connects you to, or should the loan officer be the first person that you contact when you're starting this home buying process? Like, how do they fit into the whole picture?
The loan officer is the glue to the transaction, because they are the one that they're going to be able to fund you your reality. So most realtors do have an extensive list of loan officers that they prefer. You can find a loan officer first if you want to make sure that you have the affordability to purchase the property. There's no wrong answer for that. You can start with the realtor, have them line you up with a lender or a mortgage broker, or go directly to the source. And then they also can point you to a realtor that they prefer as well.
Okay. Well, yeah, these people who are loan officers and realtors and title companies, they are all very interconnected, and they work with people who they trust. Because if I was a realtor and I would send you to, a certain title company or to an officer, how they work with you is a reflection of me, right? So they're going to be with people
100%.
who they trust, and it's kind of everyone's kind of interconnected there. So that's great to know. So let's say I went through the process. I found myself a great loan officer. I found myself a fantastic, trustworthy agent to help me start to look at real estate and everything. And I bought my home. So pop the champagne, get the welcome mat for the front door. Now that I have bought my home, what steps do I take, and what things do I need to do to now protect my biggest investment?
Well, yeah, you're gonna have insurance before you even pop your bottle. Your loan officer is going to make sure that insurance is secured from before you actually close. So on that aspect, I always tell folks you can get an insurance quote at any part of the process. So if you know that you are on the edge of your budget and you want to make sure that you can afford the property, before you go look at it, before your heart is broken, get an insurance quote. If you're in the option period, where you're going through the motions to make sure the house is safe, get an insurance quote. Um, you're gonna have to have that before you can close. So another thing too is you want to work with someone that can give you options. In my office, we are an insurance broker. So we have 20 plus carriers to shop your homeowner's insurance with. Do not always go with the cheapest insurance. Whenever you get the cheapest insurance, you're probably missing coverages. So you want to make sure that everything is going to be covered and not just have a piece of paper for you to close unless that is absolutely necessary.
Right, right. And we sometimes hear in the news these horror stories where, I mean, I'll just give an example where someone in Florida, the hurricane comes by and they may have had hurricane coverage, but not flood coverage. And then the insurance company deems that, well, it wasn't the hurricane, it was the flood that resulted from the hurricane. So, what are some things in the Metroplex of little loopholes or things that we need to make sure are in our homeowners insurance coverages?
Okay, so we'll start with the factors. From the beginning, we're going to look at the age and condition of the house. Homes that are older than 40 years are going to be maybe more of a risk if they haven't been updated. Insurance agents are also going to look at your credit score. You have an insurance credit score. So if you are a bad driver, this can affect you whenever you purchase a property, because that's in your insurance score. Also, the location of your house, if it's in a zip code that is affected by, just say Houston, for example, all the flood in there. If it's in an area where there's always hailstorms, tornadoes that we have here in Texas. If you have a bunch of claims, or if the house has had claims before you moved into it, that is a factor as well. What's not covered under your homeowner's insurance is flood. So what I mean by flood is if there is a heavy rainfall outside and water runs up under your door, that is not covered. On any homeowner's policy, you have to purchase a separate flood policy.
Now, I've heard that there's with climate change, there are homes that have been recently, like within the past 5 to 6 years, been designated in flood zones or flood areas, and that requires a lot more insurance. Are there ways, or would you even recommend people even trying to do this? Because sometimes that flood insurance can be cost prohibitive to where all other factors, you are going to completely be able to afford that home. But now that you realize that that home is designated in a flood zone, what are some things that homeowners can do to either fight that and say, yes, technically this could be a flood zone 100 years from now, but with the trajectory of the way your things are going, that's not anticipated within the next 25, 30 years where I plan to be there. Are there certain loopholes about flood insurance? Because I heard it could be very cost prohibitive.
Yeah, flood insurance, if you're not in the flood zone, it usually runs about $500 to $700 for the year. If you are in a flood zone, I've seen quotes where they're $1,000. I've seen quotes where they were $4,000, and that person wasn't able to purchase the property. Before you put in an offer, your realtor should be able to tell you that this particular house is in the flood zone. The loan officer too is going to do a flood cert as well to let you know that this house is in a flood zone. If you're in a flood zone, there's no way around not getting flood insurance. Flood zones do change, and they review it, and you'll know if you're in a flood zone. So I've had a client before who bought a house, they weren't in the flood zone, and then it was redetermined a few years later that they are in a flood zone and they had to get flood insurance.
And that might be cost prohibitive for people if they want to turn around and sell that home 5 years from now. That make it difficult uh, to be able to work that in. So a lot of what you're saying, Devon, is we need to do our homework before, because there's no sense in getting super excited about a home that we want to move into. That once we look at the closing costs, the monthly mortgage, the insurance, the monthly insurance that you would have to pay to be in that home, you know, there's no sense in getting excited over something that in the end, once you do all that homework, you wouldn't be able to afford. So what are some of the easiest ways that that people can do that pre-homework? And I know you've covered some of that already, but we don't want anyone to get excited about what their potential dream home may be. And then once they actually put the numbers together, it's like, oh, well, that was complete. I didn't even realize that was completely out of my affordability comfort zone. What are some other steps that people need to take to make sure that they do all the math, make sure they have all the variables, that they know what those variables are so that they can move forward confidently to know what they could afford?
Yeah, so it starts with the loan officer. So you go in, you get your approval, and let's say it's Kip. Kip is telling you, hey, you're approved for $3,000 a month, and it's X amount of dollars for a property. You can't go over 400,000. I'm just making up a number. So he's going to tell you like, hey, you need to make sure that you can live. Let's say that your payment is $2,000 for the month. That's your principal and interest, your taxes, and your insurance. You're going to know from the beginning what the maximum amount of house that you can buy. If you go in saying, oh, I want a $300,000 house, that's not how you should look at it. You need to look at it from a payment standpoint. So let's say it's $2,000. You know that you can't exceed, let's say your principal and interest is $1,500, and that leaves you $500 left for taxes and insurance. If you find a house and you know that the insurance is going to be $5,000, that is going to price you out of this property unless your taxes are super cheap. You can do all of this math from the beginning. That's why I said there's no wrong time to get an insurance quote. You already know what your payment is going to be. You already know what your loan officer is estimating your taxes to be, as well as your insurance. So whenever you're looking at a house, you can see the tax rate, divide that by 12 and be like, okay, my taxes are $200 for the month. Then you would get an insurance quote and make sure that your insurance doesn't exceed the remaining amount of from the difference from the taxes. Um, a lot of times buyers don't think they have to do any work. Everything is laid out on the realtor, but it's simple math. We want to make sure when we're looking at these properties that you do your due diligence to get those insurance quotes, because your realtor can't get a quote for you. You have to directly call the insurance agent.
And aside from that, there's lots of other expenses that we may not even account for. Is, you know, if you're moving into a home, if you've been in an apartment or a condo situation and then moving into a home, are you going to have one lazy boy and one TV tray? You know, you got to think about furnishing and, you know,
Right.
the homeowners association fees and costs. Are those ever negotiable, or are those set in stone? HOA.
No. Yeah, HOA is going to be set in stone. If it's a mandatory, yeah, HOA, it's going to be set in stone. You're going to know that amount as well. So you'll look at the payment, the taxes, the insurance, the HOA, and you can always ask the seller what their utilities normally run, so you can have a good idea of how much your utilities are going to be.
And also to put people's minds at ease, we're giving this information, but the wonderful thing is that Dallas Area Habitat has resources to help you step by step with
Right.
this. So I know a lot of you right now are taking notes and like, we got to think of what, you know, it can be daunting and almost overwhelming to think of all this front end information that you need. But the comforting part of that is that once you do your homework on the front end, then the rest of the process should be a lot smoother because you already know what capital you're going to have to work with. You already know what monthly allowance you're going to be able to make for yourself based on what income you bring in versus what you're going to have to put out every month. And that's the great thing about this time that we're spending together, is that this is just the beginning of the conversation, because Habitat has all kinds of resources to hold your hand and walk you through that process, so you're not thinking loan officer, where the heck am I going to find a loan officer, real estate agent, all these resources and the help in finding those resources. You guys came to the right place. So I know it may sound overwhelming, but that's why I'm asking these questions that either I had back when I was in the home buying process, or questions that I still have to this day if I needed to sell my current home and move to another one. So Devon, thank you for
Yes, ma'am.
your expertise and for your patience. I rather ask questions at a fifth grade level, assuming that way we all can understand. Because if I can understand it, that means hopefully everybody else can understand it too. So,
Yeah,
um,
Mercedes, let me just add one more thing in, because I have another class to attend, and I will be
mhm.
jumping off in about 10 minutes. On the insurance side, you need to know what your deductible is. I have seen people calling me actually this week where they got insurance from another agent and their deductible on wind and hail was $20,000. They got an estimate for their roof, it was $12,000. That is not an insurance claim. So make sure you know what your deductibles are on your insurance and make sure that you can afford it. Um, Before you file a claim, you always get an estimate first. Always get an estimate, because it may not be an insurance claim. You do not call to file a claim unless you know it exceeds your deductible. Always, you don't want to mess up your insurance score if you file a claim and it's not anything, it's not a claim. So now in Texas, the 1% wind and hail deductible is pretty much obsolete. It's a few carriers that are still doing 1%. The majority are starting at 2%. There are other carriers that are doing 3. If you get a 5% deductible, know that you're probably never going to use your insurance because it's extremely expensive. And then another note too is, I know everyone doesn't check their email. Whenever you're buying a house, I would suggest that you make a dedicated email for your home, your insurance, anything that's related to your house, make a separate email, so you don't get lost in the sauce and miss something important. I've had people who have had their insurance canceled because they didn't respond to an email. It is your responsibility to be an adult and check it. We agents and insurance reps, we cannot check everybody's policies every time. So just make sure you do that. Make sure that your taxes and your insurance are paid. I know that your account will be escrowed. Just double check, call your insurance agent and check with the tax department to make sure that that check was received.
And what does escrowed mean?
Escrow is your insurance and your taxes that are funneled in with your payment. Your mortgage company is going to issue checks for your taxes and your insurance. It's all lumped in with your payment.
Oh, so at the end of the year, you don't do a separate check for property taxes. It's all included, worked into
Correct.
it. So you're just
Yes,
doing
ma'am.
one. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
But still
Great,
double
great,
check
great.
to make sure, because checks can get lost in the mail and the mail is super slow these days. We've had insurance checks take 15 days to get to us. So just make sure that you always check to make sure your payments are made.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for sharing that. And
Yes,
something that I
ma'am.
definitely learned in that was insurance score. And
Mhm.
so I need to not be crying wolf and calling them when it's well under my deductible. It,
Yes,
it
ma'am. Don't do
basically
it.
counts against me. So I'm taking notes on what y'all are saying. So I hope everybody else is too, because I'm learning and I thought I knew a lot about home ownership. Joke's on me, I don't. So, Devin, thank you. Stay on as long as you can, but we know that you need to hop off here in a little bit, so we appreciate your time today. We are now going to move on to the lenders panel. So this is the incredible, amazing loan. We know we've heard about loan officers quite a bit and things like that. So these are people that we want to know and we want to know well and have great relationships with, aside from our insurance agent and aside from our real estate agent. So on this panel, we have Kip Dixon, we have Pilar Johnson, and Allison Lang. So Kip, if you don't mind starting, if you three can just tell us a little bit about yourselves and what you do, and go ahead, Kip.
Hi, thank you so much again for emceeing this wonderful event. Guys, thank you all so much for taking out your Saturday to join us on this very informational day. So I'm Kip Dixon. I'm with Cadence Bank. I've been doing this for a good second. I don't want to age myself, but it's something that I'm passionate about. I really believe that everyone should possibly be a homeowner. But and just like the title says, owning your own future. So hopefully I can help give you some knowledge that'll help you become a homeowner.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Pilar Johnson. I'm a loan officer with First Horizon. And just like Kip said, definitely give yourselves a pat on the back for being here because this is the first step, just starting the conversation. We've learned a lot of great information so far, and it can be a bit overwhelming. But just like Mercedes mentioned, as long as you have a good team to help you navigate through the process, that'll take some of that stress off your plate. So looking forward to sharing more.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Allison Lang, and my NMLS number is 119215. Thank you, Habitat for Humanities, for putting on such an awesome forum. And I don't know about each of you, but I think that I am overwhelmed with information that I've received from Kemi and Devon. Thank you both for the important information that you've given us. I've been in the mortgage business for much longer than I would like to tell, but it's been, let's say, over 22 years. So I've learned a lot. And our goal here is to impart important information on your mortgage journey. And thank you.
Thank you, Allison. All right, so we've talked about the process of finding a real estate agent. We've talked about the process of doing your homework ahead of time. That way you don't get too excited about something that you could not afford at all, right? So what are some of the most important factors that the lenders are looking for in approving a mortgage application?
I'll go ahead and kick it off. I think the top three factors are going to be your credit score. Certain programs do have certain scores that you at least have to hit that as a minimum benchmark. Of course, job stability, and then your debt to income ratio as well. A lot of clients now, because of affordability in the housing market, need down payment assistance. And there are certain programs where your debt to income has to be at a certain ratio to be able to qualify.
Quick question, when it comes to debt to income ratio, do student loans count in that, or is that in a separate bucket?
Yes, unfortunately, student loans, they do count for that, even if you are in deferment or forbearance still, or you're currently a student and not paying on them. Certain loan programs, you may have to count a 0.5% all the way up to 1%, depending on which program you're qualified for. So that's definitely something that you want to talk with your loan advisor with upfront. And most of the time, before you've even submitted an application, they'll kind of go through your monthly expenses. And so as long as you're able to mention that, they can go ahead and calculate it in just to make sure, they're suggesting the best products.
So can I add something on to that real quick about the student loans? Lately, for some reason, I've had clients call me that say, well, I have student loans. I was told that I couldn't be qualified. And so I quickly try to debunk that and just let them know it's more to the story than that. And so just like you were saying, Pilar, it really does depend on the program and the type of student loans they have and whether income driven repayment, whether they're deferred. it's just a lot of factors, but that's why we're here as experts to work with you directly on this.
Fantastic. So we hear about all kinds of different terminology when it comes to loans. Could you all give us what the difference is between a pre-qualified plan versus a pre-approved? What all does that mean?
Well, let me take that one on to start us off. Regarding a pre-qualification, um, that's an automated underwriting approval, right? So the information that you provide, we put it into our system, and it gives us an AU approval, an automated underwriting approval. With that, you complete an application, you submit that application, you give us permission to pull your credit. The information on the application needs to be accurate. Your income information needs to be accurate. Your asset information needs to be accurate. And sometimes some lenders like Bank of America, I personally ask you to submit your W-2 and your most recent pay stub so we can verify the income. So we can issue a pre-qualification letter. The system will issue that based on the information that you've provided. It's very important to be accurate. Don't tell us that you have $12,000 in Bank of America, and then we find that you only have $6. Be accurate about that information, because that information gives us a pre-qualification. The pre-approval process changes from lenders to lenders, right? At Bank of America, we treat it as if it's a loan, right? Except that there's no property. We want all your income documentation, and I'm sure there's going to be a question, and what does that entail? Employment documentation. We also going to need information on your assets, verifying employment, verifying assets. So, and then we submit that information to an underwriter. I'm sure that's going to ask later who is an underwriter. And then what we will receive prayerfully is a conditional approval letter. So it's two separate processes.
Mercedes, I think you're muted. That's okay.
I talk to myself all the time, so it's just another sorry morning. Sorry about that. Allison, I wanted to piggyback on that. With all the information that first-time homeowners need to gather, once they have a list of everything that they need, which we'll go over here in a little bit, how long does that process normally take? Once we give that information to our loan officer, to the bank, what's a good estimate of how long that would take? A month, 2 months, a week?
Let's make sure that we understand your question properly. When it comes to a pre-qualification, that is something that can be done immediately based on the information that is on the application. Now, for Bank of America and for myself, I would prefer for our clients to send me their W-2 and at least their most recent pay stub so we can verify. It's one thing to tell me that you make $2 million a month, but you know what? I want to verify that for you, right? So we need that. So the process really depends on you and submitting the documentation that is required. That's the problem. It's really submitting those documentation right away. But the pre-qualification, based on your information, I can get that out to you immediately. Pre-approval, an underwriter, and it varies from lenders to lenders, but generally with a pre-approval, a lender has to send that file up to an underwriter to review all those documents and provide us a pre-approval letter. Only an underwriter can sign off on that for it to be valuable.
Okay, thank you.
So we have two different types of buyers, right? We have buyers who work for a company that are employed through, they have a boss and they have a company that sends them their paychecks. Then you have other people who are self-employed. They're either a small business owner or they're a contractor. They're out there hustling that they don't know when their next paycheck is. They have the demonstrated pay history of what they have made, but they may not know exactly how much they're bringing in next month or next quarter for that matter. So if I am self-employed, how does that impact me, and what documents, if anything different, do I need to provide in order to usher this pre-qualification process?
That
Laura,
change
you want me to
from
get
then,
this one?
go ahead, Skip.
Yeah. So this is you know, I love my self-employed borrowers. You know, one of the things that we have to explain, I had a client this week who sent me a few items, and I was saying, well, since you're self-employed, I'm going to need your tax returns for the last 2 years, because that's our way of being able to calculate your overall income. And then I asked about the bank statements. I said, now, do you have bank statements for your job, business as well as your personal? Um, because there are things I'm asking those questions for, because, for instance, if they have a vehicle that is for their job and they pay their vehicle out of that bank account, that's their business, I cannot use that towards their debt to income. And so it's a lot of little tricks, and not tricks of the trade, but it's just little things that we're looking at. And when we're asking these questions, we're not trying to get you in an aha moment, but we're really trying to help you become a homeowner. And so, you know, the biggest difference between a W-2 and a self-employed borrower, and as Allison spoke earlier, it's a lot of times it's going to be based off the type of loan that you're looking to purchase, and based off of desktop underwriting or AUS findings. Because in some cases, you may have switched from a W-2 job you were for 20 years, and maybe on this new job a year, but it's all your experience that couples with it that was in that same field. Again, there are different ways we can look at it, but the only way you can find out if you talk to us and let us help you. So I could go on and on, but I'm gonna let you chime in, Pilar.
No, that was a great explanation. And all I would add is when you are starting that home buying process, especially if you are self-employed, shop around. Although we are all loan officers, every bank has different programs. Depending on the bank, they may even have portfolio loans, which are specific to their bank. So just make sure you're asking questions and just seeing what all of your options are, and maybe not just going with the first person that you talk to, just to make sure that that bank or lender has the best solution for your need.
And if you're able to get a loan at a certain interest rate, could that change in the future? Like if interest rates go down, is there a time limit to where, okay, I have to be locked into this rate for a certain amount of time, or hey, the Federal Reserve decided to go ahead and lower the rates, and so how soon can I lower that rate in order to lower my payment or pay down my the principal even quicker? Is there how does that work out with the timing if the rates do go down?
So for us, we offer a free float down, and that's during the processing of your loan, whether it's a regular uh, consumer loan, which is agency or government, or if it's a portfolio loan or what have you. And then also with our construction to perm, we also have a free float down as well. So, you know, depending on the product, but for the most part, we always offer that, because one of the things when the rates are going up and down, I'm able to reach out like I did. I have a file closing on Monday, but before I submitted it to closing, I immediately reached out to our secondary team and said, hey, can you tell me if the rates have improved since we locked this loan? And I'm one of those crazy loan officers. I check every week. I know they're like, here we go again, Kip. No, it hasn't improved. Hey, I'm just asking. And so, because I may be good on it, because sometimes you just got to time the markets or what have you. And so, but once we close that loan, that rate is fixed. We won't adjust it up or down, anything like that, because once we close, we close.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Now I like to think worst case scenarios. I think, okay, how can I screw this up? Whenever I'm doing something important, I think, what are the things that I need to do to not screw it up? If I know how I can screw it up, what can I do to avoid that? So what are some things that either in the market or as a potential home buyer, what can slow down the process? What could throw it off track? And what should be some things that borrowers should steer clear of to avoid bad things happening in that process?
Once you make the decision to start the home buying process, one of the most important things that you need to do really is to know where you stand. What areas do I need to work on? And what do I know about the home buying process? Do I need to go and take a first-time home buyers workshop to learn the ins and outs of that process, right? Do I need to connect with a CTO partner? Because really and truly, I really don't know anything. It's really to get an idea as to what I'm getting into. What does it entail? And once you have that basic information, the next step really is to create a budget, because now you want to find out, how much do I qualify to buy this house? What are my expenses, right? And then there are programs out there that can help you. There are better money habits programs that can help you to put a budget together, help you how to save money for this process, right? Because it's a journey. I think the next step after that is really to engage a loan officer. You don't have to have them pull your credit, but you can have that conversation. What does that process look like, right? And then you can take it from there, whether you want to go ahead and continue learning more about the process, or do I want to find out how much do I qualify for? How much is it going to cost me in terms of out of pocket? What kind of monthly payments I'm looking at? So that's part of that journey. I hope I answered the question.
Yeah. I know earlier, Akemi and Devon had been talking about when you're looking for an agent to help you through the process, that it's okay and it's recommended to interview more than one agent. So if you're potentially doing the same thing with a loan officer, does that count against your credit if each one is running your credit, or are you flagged for, like, this person's talking to every loan officer in the Metroplex? How does that work?
Well, it's recommended that I always recommend a client to reach out to other lenders so you can have an opportunity to compare in terms of the, is it going to hit my credit score? It could, but as long as you're checking that credit is being checked within that 45-day period, you should be okay. But just keep in mind that it could be a hit to the credit. But overall, when you look at the credit, how they come up with your credit score, it's a huge pie. And where is inquiries? So the inquiry portion of that pie is limited. It's the overall pattern of your credit. So the time frame is really about 45 days to have creditors going in before it hits your credit.
Stay within that 45-day window. It's not like ding, 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 ding that you're kind of setting yourself back. As long as you keep it within that 45-day window, it shouldn't count against you. Is that what you're saying, Allison?
History shows, but the other important thing is your pattern, right? You don't want to also be shopping for a mortgage, and Skip can chime in on that. and a credit card and a car loan, right? Because then it's going to go bonkers because that's not what you're doing, and that's outside of your pattern. So the credit is another
Prioritizing,
realm.
right? Right, right.
Really, it's your
I think,
pattern.
I think PR, did you want to add something real quick?
Yeah, I was definitely going to just add that during the actual loan process, something that could slow it down is not providing documentation in a quick manner. You know, once you've gotten a conditional approval, it's just that there may be conditions to it. So there may be some transactions on your bank statements that you may need to explain and provide letters of explanations. And so if your lender is asking for something, definitely stay on top of those things so you can, you know, do your part in moving the process along and getting the closing quicker. And then also, just because you do have a conditional approval, those are not keys in hand. So sometimes we see people getting overly excited and going and doing house shopping, and they're decorating before they even have the house, or furniture shopping. And we're constantly monitoring credit. So if you're not purchasing those things with cash that you have in an account that we're not using, you know, to verify that you have funds to close, that could become a debt to income issue, and you could, you know, in essence, kill the deal before you even have keys in hand. So definitely just don't do anything on your credit or with credit during the actual loan process.
So stay away from Nebraska Furniture Mart, Ashley
Yes.
Furniture, making
Yes.
your own. Like, calm
Yes.
down, people. Calm down.
Yes.
Just wait until you've
Please.
actually been approved,
Yes.
until the keys in hand.
Yeah.
Then you can go crazy with all that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Mercedes, something that we've noticed too is that people have worked so hard to get their credit good, and they're like, oh, wow, I can go buy that new car. And so what I'm seeing is people work hard to get their credit up, and man, I just couldn't buy that cash car. I had to get that brand new smell car. I said, that's wonderful. That's going to be your new house. And you know, because sometimes their debt to income ratio is so tight. And we've told them, others have told them, but they want to do what they want to do and still think they want to get the same amount of house. And that's not going to be the case. And you know, and also when you're looking at running credit, just like Allison was saying, it's a pattern. You know, if you're going to shopping for a car, you're going to shopping for a diamond necklace, and then you're trying to buy a house, that's going to raise a lot of eyebrows when it gets to underwriting. What are they doing? You know, why is this applicant all having their credit ran all over town, not just for a house, but for jewelry, for a vehicle? And then we got to go back and say, okay, if you got a new vehicle, we need the statement. You know, it just creates more work. And then the word is they're going to say that we're beating them down because we're asking a lot of questions and they not a document, but this is what they have created. And so I love the fact that PR and Allison both were saying, interview others. And just because you interview them, that doesn't mean they have to run your credit. And that's one of the first things I do. I try not to run their credit. I want to get a feel for, you know, where is this person at in this process? Are they ready for the long-term commitment? Because it's commitment. And basically what you're doing when you're interviewing Pilar, when you're interviewing Allison and interviewing myself, you're dating us. You're trying to see how we're going to work together. You know, will this person pick up the phone when I call them? How do they respond via email? And, you know, because you want someone who's not only going to be your loan officer, but also your teammate. And because we're going to be teaming with the realtor and you to help you achieve your goal. So I'll be.
Well, and that's they say that adulting is hard, because if you're going to go full throttle in buying a home, then I think, as we can all agree, then that needs to be your main priority. It's not your glow up summer. I mean, you can go work out and put sparkly things on your face all you want, but you're not going to get the car. You're not going to go, you know, get the flat screen TV and all these things. Like we have to prioritize what is the most important thing. And then once we take care of that, then you can go ahead and do all the other fun stuff that you want to do. So before we open, because we're going to open it up to Q&A for everybody else on the call, we have one more question for our loan officers. Is that how do you think that lenders such as yourself and housing nonprofits such as Habitat, how can you all collaborate more effectively to help close that home ownership gap?
Well, for me, I love Habitat. I can tell my Habitat clients because they're very, very confident. gone through such a wonderful process, and they are educated, and they know, hey, my credit is this is where I'm at on my debt to income. I mean, they know the terminology, and so it's a good partnership, and that's what you want. And so I would stick with Dallas Habitat. They will get you and lead you in the right direction.
Yeah, and I'll just add that partnering with a local nonprofit that provides these types of resources is the best first step. Because to Kip's point, then when you are starting the process and talking with the realtor and the loan officer, some of those terms are not as foreign and it's not as overwhelming because you're kind of already armed with those tools. And you also have people that you can lean back on and say, hey, you know, this is what my loan officer told me, or this is what the realtor said. Can you kind of advise? And so they can kind of point you in the right direction. So definitely starting with a local nonprofit such as Dallas Habitat is a great first step.
I totally agree. Part of my career, I was part of a nonprofit organization that one of the main component was homeownership. So I know how important it is for the information that nonprofits such as Habitat give out. So, you know, they give potential buyers a lot of basic information that makes them more able to absorb the process. All right. And they also have an additional partner because for Habitat, once you're a member of Habitat, you're always a member of the Habitat community. So they're always going to be there to guide you. So you're part of that team. So yeah, I'm definitely excited to have a CTO partner as Habitat to help our clients. And they are very resourceful to each and every one of you on this call for sure.
We are very fortunate to be partnering with Habitat today and always because the home buying and the lending process can be daunting if you don't know what's going on. But organizations like Habitat will help just step by step tell you where to go, tell you what questions to ask, and things of that nature. So, as I said, adulting is hard, but thank goodness there's resources and there's people out here to help you in that process. And so now you've heard a lot about what we have shared and some of the information, tidbits of information, but now we want to hear from you all. So we're going to open it up with a Q&A. I know some people have been already posting questions in the chat, but now we're going to open it up. Our homeowner services team is going to start reading through the questions for our panelists and moderators. This is your time to shine again because I'm not going to know how to answer these questions. So like they say, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. I'm definitely not in the wrong room today. So team is going to go ahead and start showing us some questions that the folks on this webinar have for us. So go ahead, friends, please don't be shy. Ask any questions that you may have.
Mercedes, we did have one question in the chat, which probably is for the lenders. And I thought it was very interesting. They asked if alimony and child support counted against your debt to income and qualifications.
Like if you're paying it or if you're receiving it, I guess
If you're
both ways.
I guess both ways. If you're paying it and or if you're receiving.
Yes.
If you are receiving I'm sorry.
That's okay. Go ahead.
If you're receiving alimony, right, and it counts as an income. It counts as an income. We definitely have to verify via the divorce decree or if it's court ordered, right? If you are paying alimony or child support, it becomes a debt. And we can pick that up on the pay stub. We pick that up on the pay stub and we'll ask questions because if you're divorced, we're going to want to see a copy of that. alimony document. And we'll also ask that question, do you pay alimony or child support? So, and it also shows up on the credit report sometimes. So I hope that I've answered. So it can be a debt, and it can also serve as an income.
So let's say someone divorced maybe a couple years ago. Kip, I'll turn it over to you once I'm done with a question. Let's say someone got a divorce a couple of years ago, and their ex-spouse had horrible credit. Does that affect your credit? Now, if you are newly single, you want to restart your life, and you want to move into a home, does that, you're legally divorced now, but does the partner's past credit history now negatively affect yours?
It will if it's in this divorce decree that you take ownership of specific debts that from the divorce decree. So, I've had that happen with clients who, that they were better stewards with their credit than their ex-spouses. And what I'm running into is a lot like vehicles where they co-sign. And that person was awarded the vehicle, but guess what? They didn't continue paying. And so that, yes, they're divorced. Yes, they've gone their separate ways, but that bad boy is still there hanging out there. And so we have to get documentation showing, okay, we see that you were divorced. So we see that this person was awarded the vehicle. Now, we can hopefully do some exceptions and to keep that from impacting them on the debt to income, but we can't do anything if it's affecting their credit scores. Laura, Allison, did I hit that right?
All right.
Yes.
We got some additional questions. So, what is the difference between a pre-qualification and an approval again?
So essentially, guys, a pre-qualification is like, I said hi to you, reach out, say, hey, I make $1 million. I want to buy a $2 million home. This is all my information. I'm gonna do an application, just qualify me and what have you. And, that's all fine and dandy. But then when we get to the conditional approval, because anybody can send a pre-qualification letter out. It's garbage in, garbage out. Whatever you put in, that's what goes in. But when it comes to a conditional approval, and I think Allison was speaking to this, is that it's going to be underwritten approval, whether it goes to our AUS or whether, and we're going to verify income. We're going to verify your identity. We're going to verify your assets. We're going to do everything we can to make sure you're your home buyer ready. And that's why I always tell clients, this is a 90-day journey. So your credit, once we run your credit as a hard inquiry, it's 90 days before it drops off, and then we have to run it again. So you want to be intentional about when you're looking to purchase and your time frame, because that all is going to be impacted. You want a conditional approval in this market because anybody can go show a pre-qualification, then you get to underwriting, and then they tell you you said you make $1 million, but you make 10,000 because you write everything off. So yeah.
I think an easy way to say that would be pre-qualification is what you tell me. Pre-approval is what we prove. That's an easy way to look at it, because a lot of times we do have an idea of what we think we make, but like, again, as Kip was saying, a lot of times we write that off. And yes, you made that, but if you wrote it off, did you really? You know what I mean? So yeah, pre-qualifying is what you tell me. You can tell me anything. That's what I say. You can tell me anything. It's great. But pre-approval is what can we prove? And that's when you're going to submit documents, and specific questions will be asked and things like that. So, like they were saying, just try to keep good records of what you're doing. If you're an entrepreneur, or you're, let's say you're eyelash tech or whatnot, and I get all my money paid through Cash App and things like that, you may make the money, but we need to be able to prove you make the money, and if we can't prove it,
It doesn't count. Yeah.
Right, you
Yeah.
can't use it. So
Yeah.
one of the questions I was asked earlier, what can you do to prepare yourself for homeownership or for this journey is, if you're a last check, and again, a lot of people have their side jobs, side hustles, or maybe they don't put all their money in a bank or funnel it certain ways, but you might want to set up some different type of ways to where you are receiving your funds. It doesn't matter, how you receive them, but you want to make sure that you could show that it's being received, whether it's via bank, via whatever can be proved, because another thing is, I was going to say earlier when someone was, well, looking in the chat, let's say you do have $100,000 and you're like, yeah, I got money for down payment, and I can got closing costs, I'm good. Well, we don't know where you got it from. We can't use it. So, and money has to be sourced and it has to be seasoned. And sourced means, because I know we use these terminologies, and my apologies, but sourced basically means we need to know where it came from. If it was a gift, we need to know it was a gift. That means we would have to connect with um, the person that gifted it to you, and they may have to write a letter or whatever the guidelines are that are mortgage professional would tell us to do. If it's, and it has to be seasoned. You can't, you know, want to get a home today and all of a sudden got $100,000 put in your account this afternoon. That's great. Call me. But um, we need to know where it came from. But it has to sit there for a while too. So even if you do get a gift or whatever it is, win the lottery or whatever the case may be, it does have to be seasoned. Excuse me. It has to be seasoned. Basically, if I use a lot of different terminologies to help people understand. Season, let it marinate for a little while. So you need to let it season, put it in the refrigerator for a while, get it out in a couple of days. It's going to be just right, but it has to be seasoned. It has to be sourced. Where did it come from? Then it has to sit and be seasoned. So those are terminologies, and those are conversations that you would have with your loan person that would tell you how to do that. And if money does come your way, before you do anything, like I tell my clients, before you do anything, just let us know so we could tell you the best way to get it done or how to do it. If your mom says, hey, I'm going to give you $5,000 as a gift towards closing, that's great. Give your loan person a call, say, hey, my mom's going to do this, and let them tell you what to do and where to put it. Don't just go and throw it in your bank account. You know, don't just get a check and say, oh, I got this check, so I'll have it for closing. Let them tell you the best way um to use it and where to put it at so it can, because you can get a gift. No worries, but you want to be able to source it and all that stuff the correct way.
As long as it looks good on paper, then it'll count towards where you want to go. I know that there's been a couple of questions about credit score. But if you were to say, what's the minimum credit score that someone should have once wanting to move forward with the home buying process? Is there a magic number that people should be shooting for if they haven't made it to that yet?
So I would say always, the higher your score, the better your interest rate and the better products you're going to be offered. But most programs will go down to a 580 credit score. But then this is another reason you want to shop around. I work for a bank, First Horizon, and so we have things that are called overlays, which means that the policy may say one thing, but we have our own rules as well that we have to follow. And with that, First Horizon does require that on all products we have a minimum of a 620. So definitely shop around and see what the different credit score requirements are at each institution.
Okay, thank you. And I know that we hear a lot of different commercials for companies that help boost your credit score. Are those legitimate? Are those worth pursuing in the process of getting to 620 and above?
I personally have not seen very many that have been, helpful to my clients, but I'm sure, other lenders may be able to put a little bit more color on that. But personally, I have not. I think just the old-fashioned way of just making sure you're paying your bills on time, keeping your utilization low is probably going to be the best when positioning yourself for home ownership.
Boring pays the bills, right? There's nothing
Yes.
flashy about it. There's nothing sexy about it. It's just pay your bills on time. Keep on doing
Yes.
that. Season your money. I'm gonna thinking about seasoning for the rest of the day. Um, so that's all fantastic. Now we have about 8 more minutes left. So and we still want to, we still want to answer your questions. As I said earlier, this conversation is not over. Even once the call is over, there's lots of resources, and people will be reaching out to you if you did have a question that wasn't able to get answered while we were live on this call today. This is just the beginning of the conversation and the process for all of us together. We're now going to turn to Allison. Allison and Bank of America is our sponsor today that allowed this to happen. So Allison, would you like to say a few words and any closing comments that you have to send us out into the world of home ownership and achieving our dreams?
I really want to say thank you to Habitat for Humanities for having this such an important forum. I'm hoping that the audience that you've received at least two pieces of information that will help you on your mortgage journey. Everyone on the call gave important nuggets that I think would help. Um, and I want to thank really Habitat for Humanities. On the call audience, they have a lot of resources that can help you on your homeownership journey, which it is a journey to get that key so you can start your generational wealth. For Bank of America, again, thank you for this opportunity to be a part of this forum. Bank of America is really involved in community homeownership commitment. And they've gone as far as to invest $15 billion in the community homeownership commitment initiative. And right now, this initiative is in over 400 counties throughout the United States. And the goal is to provide affordability and sustainment in communities, because the way that they came up with this community homeownership commitment initiative is by going out into communities, listening, gaining information. And one area that we can help is with the down payment and closing costs. So that's how they came up. It wasn't me. We came up with this $15 billion to help with down payment and closing costs. There are two main components to it, ladies and gentlemen. One component is the down payment, where we'll give up to 3% off the purchase price towards down payment to a maximum of $10,000, whichever is less. And you do get a 1099 for that down payment piece. The second component of this initiative is that we give up to $7,500 towards closing costs. The great thing about the closing costs is that we can use a portion of that money to buy down that rate for you, right? Bank of America, we're really focused on in giving the tools that first-time home buyers need, or even a second person buying a home. And we do have a lot of resources to help you. We do have the first-time home buyers homeowners series that talks about all the new things that are on the horizon for home buyers. We do have Ben of Money Habits, which helps you with budgets and videos, and it's just, we do have all those resources. And I'm hoping that you, the audience, will be able to take advantage of those resources, not to mention the great resources and the history behind Habitat for Humanities. There's no surprise as to why we have partnership with this great organization. Take advantage of it. Thank you so much for your attention to this very important matter of generational wealth. and Bank of America is there to help with this process.
Thank you so much, Allison. Something that I always grew up hearing from my parents is that you don't get what you don't ask for, or you don't get what you don't work for. So the resources are here. The people that are willing to help you are here. If the Habitat, if someone from Habitat could post where your in the chat portion, the link of where to go. Like, let's say this call got them really, you're excited now, you want to buy a home, you're like, I'm above 620, let's do this. Where do we go on the Habitat website to start that process? And so we can get our hands held and move forward together. Someone can go ahead and post that. And this recording will be available on the website. So if you want to watch it again with your family members and other people that want to see you accomplish your dreams as well, it might be good to watch it again. Like, if this is the first time to kind of take in all the information, and now you can watch it a second time to actually make sense of everything that you just heard and just learned. And so a big thank you to Allison, and a big thank you to all of our panelists and participants, for all of you who joined in the community who wanted to learn more. We're thankful that you guys joined us today and that you invested these 2 hours into yourselves. You invested these 2 hours into your future, and we are all very excited to see where you go with it. And so the folks at Habitat are here to help you throughout the process. All the contact information for the panelists has been made in the chat. So if you didn't grab it, you can scroll up, or you can just wait until the recording comes out. Please don't send them any chain letters or any silly memes. This is all business. But everybody who was on here was very personable. They all have hearts of gold, and they wouldn't have taken 2 hours of their Saturday morning to be here unless community was not prime importance to them. So thank you all for being here. Keep on sending your questions, and let's all keep in touch. And thank you, Habitat. All right, thank you guys, everybody, for being here. Corey, I don't know if you guys want to say anything official, or we can be like, bidee, 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 that's all, folks. But I think we all learned a lot today, and